really got to try on that left-hand side. What happened?
Oh, but I've gone up and over and bloody head over biscuit. It wasn't enough stability there for myself, but no, I was busting for a bit of meat this game. It didn't seem to work out.
Hello, cheers, and welcome to the Scrum of the Earth podcast, the weekly show for news, reviews, great interviews, and so much more, all about the world of rugby. As always, my name is David Lawrence. I'm an American rugby fan who follows the game wherever I can find it, all over the globe. If you'd like to get in touch, well, I'm easy to find on all your socials, and you can always just drop an email to thescrumoftheearth@gmail.com. Well, bit of an odd weekend for rugby this weekend. We'll get into all of it very shortly, so why don't we just get the ball rolling? We're going to start, as always, with our current updates, and I wanted to do a bit of a shout-out to a listener from Denver, Colorado, soon to be home of the Onyx and the WER. More on that very soon. By the way, I always love hearing from any and all listeners, so if you've been considering reaching out, do us both a favor and reach out. I would love to hear from you. In any event, this time, we had a question about where we, as Americans, can actually watch rugby. It made me realize I hadn't talked about this since early in the podcast history, so it might have been like 3 years since I actually talked about this. So what I told them basically was there aren't too many options, but they do exist. They all have their pros and cons. Peacock, which is a sort of weird streaming service for NBC, they've carried Six Nations in the past. They've had lots of other internationals as well. They used to carry the HSBC Sevens. The service is surprisingly inexpensive, and they carried all the Olympics last summer as well. The annoying thing about Peacock is they don't post their offerings until the very last minute, like sometimes only a day or two ahead of the matches. And when they don't have any content for any extended period, they get rid of the little tile that sort of brings you to the rugby listings overall, and it just gives you this feeling like, oh no, it's gone, they've stopped carrying it. Like, it makes you kind of panic a little. So today is Wednesday, it's 2 days before the start of the Men's Six Nations, and I think today was the first time they actually listed any of those fixtures. So on the other hand, we've got Flow Rugby, not the most reliable service in the entire world, but to say the least, and it costs a lot. Most services do let you pay by the month. Flow Rugby, no, you have to pay them for the entire year at a time, and that kind of just makes it feel more painful. That being said, they carry a ton of rugby. Right now, they have the URC and the top 14. They should have Super Rugby when it comes back next month. I hope. They also carry Super Rugby OPK, I'm sorry. They had the Currie Cup this past season. They have all the European Action, Champions, and Challenge Cup, and they even carry some domestic college rugby. That means, if I'm honest, they technically carry more rugby than even I want to watch, and that is saying something. In any event, I've often been told that simply getting a VPN will make all of this easier, but my one foray down that road was unsuccessful, let's say. I've heard a lot of these deals also are going to be up soon, and so despite how often I criticize Flow Rugby, as I call them often, Blow Rugby, I am shaking in my boots over the prospect of them losing these competitions. I have no idea what I would do after that. So I do hope this whole bit is useful for my fellow American rugby fans. If you have found other ways to watch, please get in touch, and I will try to pass those things along.
It's too good! It's too good! People have to know!
Yes, Isaac, it in fact is good news this week, as we're only a couple of months away from the debut, as I just mentioned, of the new women's competition here in the States, the WER. Quoting here from Rugby Pass, quote, "With the inaugural Women's Elite Rugby season now under 2 months away, the names, colors, and crests for the 6 teams have been released. Teams from the Bay Area, Boston, Chicago, Denver, New York, and Twin Cities will compete in the inaugural league, which will feature 180 players and will be the first American professional women's rugby league. So far, each team has announced their foundational 5, the 5 athletes who have already committed to the program, and their coaches," unquote. So the teams we're talking about here are the Bay Breakers. They're based in San Francisco. The Boston Banshees. Oh, that looks good. Chicago Tempest, Denver Onyx, New York Exiles, and the Twin Cities Gemini. The Twin Cities being Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota for my non-American fans. I'm already in love with the Boston Banshees logo. I got very excited by this article, the entirety of which you can find linked in the show notes as always. Side note, Why the New York Exiles, you might ask? Well, because nobody likes being around New Yorkers, obviously. No, seriously, it's actually because the Statue of Liberty is known as the Mother of Exiles, a fact I didn't know until about a half hour ago. How cool is this, anyway? So, thoughts of the week. My thoughts this week, I'm sticking with a domestic scene that's 3 segments in a row about rugby in the United States. Can that even be right? Are we getting close to a World Cup, perhaps? Anyway, in this case, it's all about the MLR, which kicks off February 15th, though my beloved Free Jacks won't have their home opener until March 15th, which we're all, fairly used to by now. I'm putting the odds of a snowstorm that day at about 90 to 10 for. So my buddy, fellow Free Jack fanatic, and the prime mover behind the Jacks Rangers show, he recently did that's of course Phil Harris. I forgot to mention his name. He did a 24-hour marathon episode that doubled as a fundraiser to get supplies and necessities for the players who are moving to the United States for Major League Rugby. The fundraiser exceeded its goals, by the way, and to listeners outside the U.S., you might seem odd, thinking worrying about things like toilet paper for professional athletes. That seems weird, right? But it's helpful to think of it more like young men going off to college for the very first time. Either way, he and I talked about the schedule this year, which will feature midweek games for the first time in MLR history. I was saying it's funny because when I watch the NPC, which has midweek fixtures and has had them the entire time I've been paying attention, I absolutely love that. But when MLR announced it, I was instantly like, what? How dare they? It was so strange. But of course, when they made the announcement, the Players Union immediately, they made no bones about how upset they were about it. But after that sort of initial spark of outrage, I just really haven't heard anything, so I guess it's a done deal. Anyway, the date I am looking forward to most is April 12th, when the San Diego Legion come to Fort Quincy for the very first time in franchise history. In seasons past, they've been quoted as saying, I've got it right here, quote, No, we're too scared to go to Fort Quincy to play the best team in MLR. We'll get utterly destroyed, unquote. To be fair, I did just make up that quote just now. There's already a lot of talk about the possibility of a three-peat, but I am staying away from that chatter for now. By the way, if you're in the area and have never been to a Free Jacks game, reach out because my partner will be doing a play in Boston for most of March and April. I might have an extra spare ticket. So anyway, I guarantee it's always a great time. They really know how to do things right at Fort Quincy. So that, of course, brings us to our reviews. I have to admit, I kind of alluded to it already. This weekend, it's a bit of a downbeat, if I'm honest. I admit I had forgotten that just before the Men's Six Nations kicks off is like a fallow weekend. Every team fielding their B or even C teams. I mean, except for Leinster, who were more than happy to trot out Jordy Barrett and R.G. Snyman. Oh, and maybe except for Dragons, but for other reasons. In fact, I'm putting it on the calendar for next year because I don't want to get caught off guard again. I'm officially dubbing it the Who Dat weekend. Anyway, that all meant we were in for some pallid and pasty matchups, though a couple of teams pounced on the opportunity to play catch-up ever so slightly. Just to mix things up a bit, I figured we'd start with the Premiership, which actually got the round off to a good start with the Harlequins hosting the rebranded Saints, a game that went way past most of the players' bedtimes, including, ironically, Danny Kerr. Joking aside, it was a close one. Both these teams can still field pretty fair squads, even despite the depletion. Nevertheless, my Quins found themselves down 10-14 at halftime thanks to missing both their conversion attempts, but they got the better of the Saints in the second half, outscoring them 2-1. 2 of the home team's tries were by Cassius Cleves, a man whose name I wish I had made up, though if I did, nobody would have believed me. So by Betty by time, it was Harlequins on top, getting the go-ahead score from Cleves with only 4 minutes to go and holding on to win 22-19. After that, Gloucester, they also managed a comeback win, beating the spotty Leicester Tigers 38-31. Hudray Pollard, he had a heck of a game, nailing every conversion and getting a final 3 in the dying moments to secure a losing bonus point, but he still tallied 2 less points than Santiago Carreras, who racked up 13 more points to lead all scorers. Exeter beat Saracens in a clash of the unlikables 31-22. Sale Sharks lost in palindromic fashion to Bath 23-32, with Rory McConaughey grabbing a pair of tries, and Finn Russell, a man I expected nowhere near this game, he piled in another casual 12 points in the win. Seriously, why was Finn out there? It's very strange. If I were actually to hazard a guess, I would say it's as likely, as simple as him wanting to play rather than not play, or maybe him as simple as him wanting to play rather than go to training camp. Anyway, God, I love that guy. Anyway, finally, Bristol, they put a good licking on the hapless Newcastle Falcons by a whopping 55-35. The Bears poured in 8 tries, though they coughed up 5 in so doing. Harry Byrne looks like he might be a good fit for Bristol in AJ's absence, but of course, if he goes down, I mean, even I might have to put my phone on mute. So, heading into effectively an international break, Bath are comfortably atop the table. Their record at 9-2 and 6 table points ahead of 7-4 Bristol Bears. Gloucester, somehow, beyond all reason, are in 3rd place, while Leicester hold a slight edge if the playoffs were to start today over Saracens, 35-34 table points, with my Quins nipping at their heels with 32. Sale and Northampton still have an outside shot, but Newcastle, and I'm very pleased to announce, Exeter, look like they'll both have to wait till next year to gather up any form of hope. Of course, for me, the opposite side of the Premiership coin is the PWR, which had another eventful round this weekend. It was much less impacted by players going off to Six Nations camp somehow. Anyway, first up this weekend, Ealing Trailfinders narrowly defeated the Alonaless Bristol Bears 39-38 in a thriller. The visitors staged a furious comeback late, getting tries for Millie David and Lark Atkin-Davies in just 4 minutes. And it looked like they had the go-ahead try, like right at the death, but no, it was ruled held up, dashing their hopes and dealing a serious blow to Bristol's playoff chances. The stage in this one was set early, with Kate Zachary and Lisa Thompson both getting tries before 10 minutes had even gone by, but my highlight for Ealing had to be, oh my word, I'm so glad she's back, Tyson Bookaboom, getting a try on the 52nd minute. It was like manna for my shriveled little soul. Even more exciting, holy cow, my Loughborough Lightning, they went to Leicester and delivered a massive smackdown, beating up the Tigers 12-61. What a performance. Sadly, not too much to report on the Eagles overseas front, but I will take it. It was a 9-2 blowout, and it brought my team to 5 wins this year. I have to admit, I thought that was actually already better than they did last year, but I checked and discovered we actually had 7 wins last year. So, work to do. Anyway, elsewhere, Harlequins dropped one pretty handily to the Saracens, 10-33. Can't pretend I caught any of that one, though I did notice that Lottie Sharp nabbed a brace for the visitors. Finally, ending the round with a whimper rather than a bang, it was Exeter losing at home to Sale, 7-12, and a bit of a snoozer. It was a full half hour before Molly Wright scored the first points of the day, and those were the only points of the first half. Rachel Johnson scored the only try for the Chiefs on the 66th minute. And do I have anything else to say about this round? I'm afraid I do not. After approximately 13 rounds, there's a little give or take in there. By the way, if you recall, I recently asked Rugby Julia if Gloucester Hartbury were kind of rope-a-doping us and would be soon back in their, expected dominant position. Sure enough, presto, there they are, number 1 again at 10-3, with a slight points advantage over Harlequins, while Saracens and Exeter are holding steady at 9 wins apiece and well within striking range. Bristol suffered a potentially major setback with their narrow loss, leaving them on the outside looking in for now, and my Lightning are just behind them, though, if I'm honest, they're unlikely to catch up. The real outsiders, of course, are Ealing, Leicester, and Sale. The Sharks holding on to just a single victory this season, but I do have a feeling we're in for, a few more twists and turns before this competition wraps up. If you haven't been watching the PWR, I mean, frankly, what's wrong with you? It's the best season yet, and all the arrows are pointing straight up. That brings us over to France for round 682 of the top 14. Where I wondered if the, semi-depleted rosters might lead to a few more road victories than is traditional each week in this competition, but as it turned out, a pretty par-for-the-course week. The winning home teams included Toulouse, who slapped the cuffs on Montpellier 27-17, despite the guests having broken out for 2 tries in the final 10 minutes. Montpellier actually got 2 more opportunities in their opponents' 22, but they just weren't as ruthless when it came to execution. Vannes, they got a nice win against the Drink Boxes of Paris, who continued their mystifying fall-off 33-28. Pau, they managed a very sort of straight-laced win over Clermont, 20-14. Both teams managed 2 tries with 2 penalties by the home team. That proved the difference in a bit of a ho-hum affair. Perpignan, they edged out Bayonne 16-11, and Toulon, they went on a bit of a rampage against up-and-down La Rochelle, 45-26. However, Racing, remember when we were good? 92. They fell at home to Cast, whose form I've been really enjoying lately. That one was 20-27 by full time, but the big one had to be my Border Beagles, who lost to Lyon right at the death, 20-22, thanks to a 79th minute pen by Leo Berdu. Bordeaux, they looked out of sorts all day, holding a lead for only 37% of the match. A very unlikely stat for them. Neither team was particularly effective in the so-called red zone, but it was La Botte de Berdu that would make the difference. All this means, of course, with I think only 179 weeks to go, Bordeaux and Toulouse, they're knotted at 51 points apiece, with Toulon a comfortable third, a full 9 points ahead of Bayonne. Clermont are just 1 point off that, followed by a bit of a log jam with La Rochelle, Cast, Parole City, and Lyon finishing off the teams in the 30s. But the bottom of the table, definitely the most interesting, with likely one-and-done Vannes at the bottom, but right now, it looks like the team in the dreaded 13th slot is either Stade Francais or Racing. An unthinkable eventuality given their storied histories. The idea that both Parisian clubs could be in a fight to stay in the top tier is mind-blowing when you think about it. Though, of course, Pau and Perpignan, they're right there. They could easily nudge their way back downwards to prevent such a turn. What a competition, right? Anyway, finally, we had a very odd round in the URC with some serious upsets coming as teams dug deep into the wells of their own talents. Spoiler alert, half the Welsh regions won, which is the best overall showing among the four of them since the week before Halloween, when 3 of the 4 teams managed to come out on top. So we started on Friday with a massive blowout win for the Ospreys, who obliterated Benetton to the tune of 43-0. Former Cheetah Daniel Postman Dan Casende, he got a lovely try right at the end of the first quarter. It was effectively a rout, though, from the opening moments of this one. Interesting stat, I personally scored as many tries as Benetton did this week, and you know what? I haven't even gone fully professional yet. So the Lions, of course, they went down to the Bulls in Joburg, 22-35, disappointing the disappointing crowd. That was the first thing on Saturday. Both teams, by the way, falling off a full quarter or more of their tackles in the blistering summer heat. Scarlets, they got a nice win at home against Edinburgh, who continue to confound their fans, 30-24. I know it's still baby steps at this stage, but I have to say, I've been impressed with the improvements we've seen from Scarlets, from Cardiff, and lately from Ospreys, who we'd all kind of, left for dead after their slow start. A quick shout out to friend of the pod and me, Hugh Griffin, who spotted the seeds of the Ospreys' resurgence before most pundits were even talking about it. And Hugh also got to watch his team win again this week. So Hugh, what a lovely weekend for you. Well done. Leinster, they slowly, methodically, super boringly battered the Stormers 36-12. Oh my word. I think I finally figured it out. They're like watching incredibly expensive paint dry on like a mural depicting a ball of lint. Anyway, Cardiff, they ended up getting pretty well smacked around by the Sharks, perhaps the most head-scratching of all the URC teams this season. Bongi Bonambi, he got over the line twice in the win, and Mopimpi, he had another of their 6 total tries as they won 22-42 at the Cap. I don't actually know if we're supposed to call Cardiff Arms Park the Cap, but another friend of myself and the show, not that kind of Dr. Harley Worthy, abbreviated that way on WhatsApp this week, and I just liked it too much to not use it. Anyway, Dragons, I mean, do I need to finish that sentence? Like, I should probably just write a macro at this point. Like, Dragons lost at home to Munster. Munster doubled them up in another thorough trouncing. It was 19-38. It was funny to me that Dragons scored 2 of their 3 tries after the 60-minute mark, while Munster didn't score at all after the 54th minute. But I guess that's more of, funny than, funny. So anyway, there it is. After that, Glasgow, they held off my Connacht 22-19 with the final score looking a bit shinier due to a late try by Piers O'Connor. Seb Cancelleri, he was huge for the Warriors, with Dunky Weir putting in another yeoman-like performance, as he likes to do whenever he gets the call-up. So I know Dunky fans are hard to come by in Glasgow or anywhere these days, but I will go to my grave loving that guy. Like, I want to see him slightly defying expectations for at least another decade, please and thank you, if possible. So finishing off the weekend, though, had to be the shocker of the round. Ulster, they lost at home to Sad Sack Zebre 14-15. This despite the fact that Zebre didn't score a point for the final half hour and they survived a yellow card in the first half. The Ulstermen unable to capitalize. I have to say, I love it when Zebre win just because it's so rare and because I'm always rooting for the underdog. But I have to say, this is a serious low point for Ulster. I am proud to say I spent the last several seasons thinking, maybe this is the year. Ulster, they have talent. They can do stuff. Maybe this is it. Maybe they'll really do something. This year, I decided not to drink the Kool-Aid, even though many people whose opinions I really respect were falling for the whole bit. Ulster are capable of putting in a great performance, but never forget, their specialty is always going to be heartbreak. So, just quickly looking at the table, in the top 8, we've got 2 Irish teams. We've got 2 Scottish teams, 2 South African teams, and 2 Welsh teams. A lovely balance, as long as you're not Italian. At the other end of the spectrum, oh dear, it's Dragons wallowing at the very bottom with just 1 win compared to 3 for Zebre and Connacht. Connacht, who I somehow hadn't fully realized were this bad this season until just now. Edinburgh, they're clutching on to that final playoff position with Ulster, Benetton, Ospreys, and Stormers all right on their heels. The Stormers just 3 points off the mark, so I feel sure there's plenty more change in store the rest of the way. I love this competition so much. So anyway, while I was complaining about this sort of, off-brand fare in our usual competitions this week, I was very much lifted by the return to action in the HSBC Sevens, which had its latest leg down in sunny Perth. Disappointing run for my women's Eagles. The men continue to struggle as well, but Nia Tolliver and Ariana Ramsey, they put on a great show for the first couple of matches before seeming to kind of run out of gas a bit. Maybe it was the heat. 2 highlights for me, though, were discovering that my son has really taken to the Sevens. A seed I had not known was growing until 2 moments this weekend. So one was when we were watching my Eagles, and he asked, "Hey, is Sammy playing?" In reference to a friend of the pod, Sammy Sullivan. I told him no, unfortunately, she's still recovering from an injury. And he asked, very concerned, did she get hurt in the Army? First, I can't believe he even remembered that, and remembered that she had made captain, but also, how sweet is that, right? Anyway, the other moment was during a match featuring the Wallaroos when he came over and said, "Ooh, is that Maddie Levi?" And that was the moment I realized my job as a parent is officially done. As it happened, Maddie actually went on to break her thumb and was kept out of the cup final against the Black Ferns, but the Aussies squeaked one out anyway, taking down the Kiwis 26-28 in a thriller, while for the men, Argentina blew the hosts off their own park 41-5. Exciting side note, a couple of them actually, Uruguay men, they started the weekend by beating the Flying Fijians and then following that up by beating New Zealand. What a start to the tournament for them and their fans. To be fair, they were brought quickly back down to earth soon after that. But also of note, I officially love Kenya. It's my new favorite men's program. They are so fun to watch. And what's more, their fans show up in droves and generally sort of take over a huge chunk of a stadium. They're rocking out, they're singing, they're dancing. They're basically creating as much of a cacophonous din as possible in support of their team and their country. Kenya, y'all are the best, and I hope your program grows and grows. It's going to be great for fans all over the world. Well, by the music, you'll of course know it's time for this week's Diamond in the Ruck Award. This week, the award goes to Michaela Brake, Mrs. Brake, for you are no longer Ms. Blyde. After recently getting hitched, you came back with a hellish fury this weekend. It was like you'd been saving a whole rash of vicious tries just for this occasion. No sooner did the comms mention that you hadn't scored a try this season in the series than you went on an absolute tear, shredding the opposition for 4 tries in one game and drawing within 2 of the great Portia Woodman-Wycliffe, a record you will surely surpass on your way to the final series in LA. Michaela Brake, congratulations to you, for you are this week's Diamond in the Ruck. Well done. Okay, that of course brings us to our updates and previews. We're only a couple days away from a brand new men's Six Nations. Got to be clear here. While I do love the Six Nations, great tournament, kind of have to be a fool to say otherwise. But what I don't love, as someone who likes to watch a multitude of games every week, it kills all the other competitions I love. We get no top 14. We get no URC. We don't even get the Prem. And comps like Super Rugby and the MLR haven't even started their seasons yet. Sigh. Anyway, fortunately, we do still have the PWR, where it's already round 16. We'll have Leicester, hoping to maintain, some form of respectability against Gloucester Hartbury. The Bears of Bristol will be back at home to face my Loughborough Lightning. Can't wait for that one. The Trailfinders will host Saracens, and on Sunday, Exeter welcome Harlequins to Sandy Park. As mentioned before, we're also just 2 weeks out from the return of both Super Rugby and Major League Rugby, so the next few months are shaping up nicely. Well, my friends, that does it for another week. And, I'll tell you, I'm trying to get psyched up for the Men's Six Nations, but I just don't seem to be doing a really great job of it. If Scotland come out Saturday morning and they, give us a statement win against Italy despite losing Sione, maybe that'll put some juice back into me, a little pep back in my step, but for the moment, I don't know. Anyway, it's going to be great either way. So to all of you across the globe, cheers, talk to you soon, and be well.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today.
Oh, it does, Nate. I wish I could get up at 11:30 every morning after being out all night God knows where.
You want to tempt the wrath of the whatever from high atop the thing?